Well, hi everyone. It's Reverend Stephen Morgan from St Anne's Church in Chasetown, here to deliver another midweek message for you again. So, wherever you're watching now, I hope that you're well. I don't know about you, but for myself, last Sunday, after the last couple of years of the pandemic, it was really good to get together with community again to remember the many people, young and old, who have died or who have suffered mentally and physically in wars both recent and in the past. Some of us may have a personal memory of a family member or a friend who has been lost or affected by war, while for some of us it may be an inherited memory that has been passed on to us through the generations. For myself, recently I read about my great uncle, Edward Rewbottom, who fought on the Western Front in World War One, and he recorded his experiences in his book, Mud, Blood and Bullets. But whatever our personal experience or views may be, looking through human history, we know that there's hardly ever been a time when some kind of conflict or the other has not been ongoing. And so it should come as no surprise to us really that when a survey was taken some years back by the Mail on Sunday newspaper, that readers were asked to provide one question that they would like to ask God if they could. And the question that came top of the poll in that survey was, why is there war? And this is a fair question, as when we read the Bible, especially the Old Testament, we're often confronted with stories of conflict and war there, in which we can see God's own people claiming to have been inspired and led to victory by God in battle against their enemies. And this theme of conflict and war is featured in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 to 8 in the Old Testament, in which the writer outlines a list of activities and seasons of human life that they say takes place under heaven, acknowledging that there is a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. In contrast, the prophet Micah also wrote in the Old Testament around 700 years before Christ about a time when God's kingdom would come to full fruition. A time that Micah said when nations and humanity will come together in peace and war will be no more. And even though Micah wrote against a backdrop of violence and war in his context at that time, he never lost faith in the vision that God gave him and firmly believed that one day peace would become a reality for all of humanity. And the good news is that in the Gospels we catch a glimpse of Micah's vision coming to fruition through the coming of Jesus and his life and ministry on the earth. We often forget that Jesus himself was born and lived in an occupied land amidst constant conflict, where peace was definitely not on the agenda. However, it was against this backdrop that Jesus taught and lived out God's radical message of peace and love that has changed the world. And it was with delivering this message in mind that Jesus called the first disciples. At the beginning of Mark's Gospel, we read that Jesus called the fishermen, Simon and Andrew, and James and John, and that they immediately answered the call by leaving their nets to follow him, which resulted in them all undertaking an uncertain, risky and costly life. Indeed, it was very risky and costly for the disciples to follow Jesus, because that we know out of all of the original disciples, only 2 were to live out their natural lives. And so this shows us the risks that sometimes sometimes follow us when we answer a call. And in a similar way, over the course of the First and the Second World Wars and other conflicts that have followed, we know that for many of those people who answered the call to go and fight, it ended up costing them everything. And the truth is that most of the time we have the opportunity to choose and make decisions for ourselves as individuals, but that sometimes our leaders and our governments have to make decisions for us as a nation. And on occasions we know that this has resulted in people having to answer the call to go and fight for a cause that has been perceived to be for the greater good, but which at the same time has had serious ramifications for those people who have answered the call and have lost their lives and are now their loved ones are facing that loss. And we know that sometimes the use of force and the reasons for going to war have been anything but justified by those who have made the decisions on our behalf. If anything, we know that they only appear to have made things worse. However, peace is something that we know has never been easy to achieve, and we've been reminded in recent conflicts it is something that can be very hard to establish and to keep up. Unfortunately, war has not gone away, and in a less nuanced life or deaf world, there are people out there fighting for a cause. But as Christians, regardless of the difficulties we face, I believe that we do sometimes have to stand up for what we know to be right, but that peace and love must be what we all strive and pray for in our Christian life. It's what Micah foresaw, and it's what Jesus has taught us to and calls us to pursue. For as God's people, the church, just like the first disciples, we are also called to be a transforming presence for God wherever we happen to be. And we know that this is not easy, and the perception of many people about the church in the West is that we are losing the battle, that we're not having any effect on the world. But we know that this is not the case. Let me explain what I mean by reminding us of an example from World War II. During the Second World War, we know that there was the resistance movement working in Europe who were doing their best to undermine the efforts of Hitler's forces. And if you had asked those people in the resistance movement at that time, do you think you can win the war, win the battle on your own? They would have said, well, no, there's no way we can do that. But, however, they would have gone on to say that what we do know is that while we're doing whatever little we can, progress is being made. And in the meantime, we know that one day an invasion force will come and join us and lead us to victory. So as we remember those people who have given their lives in war and conflict, let us remember also in the midst of our pain and loss that there is light, there is hope and love and peace available to us through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, who himself made the ultimate sacrifice for us on the cross to give us the opportunity to receive forgiveness, peace and everlasting life. Amidst the gentle scenes of the fishermen and going about their lives fishing and mending their nets, Jesus called the first disciples into the deep and raging waters of society at that time. But in the face of the impending hostility that they faced, Jesus didn't build an army. He built a community to build up peace and love. And in the same way, God calls us today to follow him and to do likewise. It's not a call for us to go and fight, but in the same way, it's about working together with others, partnering with others to build up a community of peace and love, which is what the people who we are remembering through Remembrance Day fought so bravely to achieve. And so, as we remember and give thanks for those people who have fought for us and paid the ultimate price, let us also give thanks to Jesus, in whom we have the future hope of a world where war will one day be no more. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the midweek message this morning, and I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing today, you may have a good day, or whenever you're watching this recording back, I hope and pray that you are well and that you may know the peace and love of God's presence with you at this time. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again. God bless now. Bye.